I think devotees, how they came to Krishna consciousness kind of story is exciting in itself. Like many devotees, my whole life kind of flip-flopped at a certain point. And I was caught up in the counterculture. And during that time, I lived in the Redwood Forest. I'm born in LA, grew up in San Francisco. And so my whole life just changed. Of course, a little psychedelics were there, I have to admit. But the good thing about that is you realize there's just so much more going on than you thought. And that just, who knows exactly the medium for these things, but the status quo wasn't working for me. So I would go to the Redwood Forest. I lived there at Bootjack Camp for, this is in Muir Woods in Marin County. And I was just on a quest for the truth to try to really understand the meaning of life. And I was reading all these books, Tao Te Ching, the I Ching, Upanishads, and it was just like, and at some point I realized, or I thought that I should be a monk in some tradition. So I was thinking, Trappist monk. I didn't know what. I was kind of like thinking the sun was the God, kind of. It just, I'm in the forest, I'm looking at the trees, the cycles of nature, the old trees falling down, the new coming up, and wow. I was a very dull child, I have to say. So this is like, oh wow, this whole other world just opened up, and I had some out-of-body and near-death experiences. I was out of the body many times, and one time I knew I had a choice to live or die. And I decided to live, and that's when I really, in earnest, I lived in Berkeley. And I ran into the devotees. And I thought they were saying Arirama, Arilama. But I was immediately drawn to them. I remember, Mahatma and Baulasva was the temple president, and Hridananda. And within a short time of meeting the devotees, myself and another devotee who's left his body, his name was Bhakta Joe at the time. He used to do the titles for the tapes, Jagajivan, thank you. And so I don't know really why he joined with me, because we didn't even talk, but I said I was moving. He said, well, I'm moving in too. But he got initiated and did a lot of service for Prabhupada. But anyway, so that was February 1970, and I was pretty spaced out. But that's when we used to go and chant on the street all day long, 8-10 hours a day. That's what we did. Hari Prasara and Lochan Das was there too. And yeah, that's what we did. We chanted on the street, and we distributed magazines and invited people to come. So the first time I met Prabhupada, met him or saw him, was at the airport in, it was a Rath Yatra. I think it was the second Rath Yatra in 1970. And I was before I was initiated. It must have been like June or something. And it was an airport greeting, and there was, there must have been 200 devotees from LA, from San Francisco, from Berkeley, probably from a lot of other places. And we're waiting for Prabhupada. The kirtan is kirtan. And we're waiting, and then the plane comes, and so the kirtan gets stronger. And then I think Prabhupada was like, it seemed like he was the last passenger to come off. And there was how I remember it, subjective reality, but he was walking up the plank. And I don't think there was anyone with him. I don't remember. But I just remember his kind of incredulous look, like, why is everyone here? Who were they coming to greet? I expected him to kind of like turn around. That just blew me away, because usually when you see somebody who's famous or in demand, then they kind of go, and Prabhupada was just so unassuming, and his humility it was just astonishing to me. And then the kirtan, of course, when people saw Prabhupada, went through the roof. And then I was just crying uncontrollably. A lot of other people, it must have been like tears flying all over the place, And I was like, the only time I knew crying when I was growing up was when I got the belt on my rear. So tears of joy was like totally out of context. It's like, wow. Yeah, I think I've thought about, of course, this a lot, and I feel like my relationship with Prabhupada is, like my breath. It's that close to me. Although I was never a particularly surrendered devotee. I never have been. But facing death has made me really understand that my only shelter is Guru and Krishna and Gauranga Nitai. So that was the first time. And then at a certain point, I went to San Jose. I was sent there. It's funny because I was praying to move from this temple in Berkeley at the time. So I went there, and from there, I was going to get initiated. This was after the Rath Yatra. And so Chiksukananda was there. He had a station wagon, and it was painted kind of wild colors, and Prabhupada called it the hippie car. So we piled in there, maybe 3 or 4 devotees and Chiksukananda. And about halfway through the trip, it broke down. So then we had to take a bus. So we figured that out. We're walking to the bus station. Some old man comes up, all excited. "You're going to get initiated?" And we're like, "Oh, yeah." He thought we were with a fraternity or something. But it was just like, somehow just confirming, It was just like, wow. I figured it out later. But anyway, so we took a bus. We got there the day of the initiation. I don't remember who all got initiated. Brahmananda was doing the yagya. Prabhupada was chanting on the beads. So my turn came, and you tell him to chant 16 rounds, follow the regs. And I told him, and then after I told him the 4 regs, the way he does, lifted up his head and kind of his charming smile, and then he said, "Is that all right?" And I was like, no. I mean, I was really shy, not like now. And I don't know, I didn't find it very amusing, to be honest with you. Later I laughed about it, but I guess I said, "Yes, it's all right." And so I got my beads and my name, and of course someone had to tell me again what my name was. So that was really, that was a really powerful experience. Just the whole time of being in that time frame, we were kind of carried along, in my opinion, by Prabhupada's bhav. And then the test was when he left, one of the examinations of the Guru. This is 1971. And for some reason, they sent all the women over to Berkeley, because they didn't want the brahmacharis to be disturbed in San Francisco, I guess. And I happened to be there anyway, in Berkeley, and Prabhupada visited. So we were cleaning up the temple and cleaning up outside, and we had just finished, and we were going to put everything in bags and stuff, and then Prabhupada came. So we stopped what we were doing. Fortunately, Prabhupada never came out. It would have been a drag to see the mess out there. Then we came in, and at the time, in the Berkeley Temple was the one on Durant Street. And the temple room at that time wasn't it was upstairs, and they moved it down so they could renovate. Lochan could renovate upstairs. And so it was very rectangular. The Vyasa-san was here, and the altar was pretty close, actually. So he sat down, he started chanting samsara prayers. So we're all chanting. And then he got to the 3rd prayer, which is the spiritual master engages disciples in the worship of the Lord. And then he just started crying. And I'm just like, I'm just kind of dumbfounded, I mean, I didn't know what to think at all, but it was just like powerful. I thought he's thinking of his own spiritual master and being a disciple. I mean, there's so many possibilities.
Okay.
Try it again.
Well, just take it from, I think he was thinking about.
Oh yeah, I think Prabhupada was, and this is just my guess, but this is how I kind of made sense of it, because I'm not used to people like, the kind of bhav and emotion, and that he just loved his disciples. And because he was, the tears were coming, and he was just looking around the room. And we were just like, kids, basically, babies, from my perspective now. And that was a very small experience, but it's very powerful for me, just to see that. that, it's not just externals, it's the feeling that we have for the process and for Krishna and for our Guru. That's what's really important. So that's what I kind of gleaned from that. I was in Hawaii, Sudama Maharaj at the time, and at the I think it was 73, and Prabhupada had asked all the temples to send devotees to India. So I was doing, most of my service when I lived in the temple, which was about 14 years, was being head pujari, head cook. So I was doing significant service, and so he decided he was going to send me to India from the temple. And so I thought I should write him a letter, because we were usually discouraged from doing that. And I thought, well, I got a perfect excuse now to write Prabhupada, ask him for permission to come to India, which, it's kind of already there. So I wrote him the letter, and as I was writing it, Bhadravardhana, I think was his name, he said, you should write some praise of the Guru first. So I wrote out, Hey Vaishnav Thakur by hand, and that was the first page. And then I thought that Prabhupada was one of the many reasons. He was successful because he had a specific mission that he was given by his Guru. And I thought, I would like to have a specific mission. We all have a general mission. So anyway, I put that prayer in there, and I said, I don't exactly remember, but I just asked him, you were given a mission by your Guru, so please let me have a mission, a direction, a service. And so when I got the letter back, I have to admit I was a little disappointed. Not getting the letter, but first he said, thank you very much for your humility, it's very much appreciated by me, and then he said, always chant Hare Krishna, and as far as possible, help me by preaching and distributing our books. So I was like, he's going to send me to China or Zanzibar or some exotic, how you are when you're young, man. But so it took me a little while to digest it and really understand that according to my adhikar, my eligibility at that time, that was a perfect instruction for me. But, a lot of times we project on the Guru. He's my father, he's my psychologist, he's my advisor. And we don't understand necessarily the gifts they have to offer. But when we do that, it can be very powerful. So it took me a long time. I've always been a late bloomer. So that, those 7 years Prabhupada was with us, I was so immature. And I think that a lot of devotees didn't know how to take advantage of his association. And we didn't know how to, at least I'm speaking for myself, but I think a lot of people, we had so much awe and reverence that it kind of got in the way of having a personal kind of relationship with him. Of course, some people that got too close, they couldn't handle it, the relative side of the Guru. But to really understand our connection, both on the spiritual and on the human side, the relative side. He has likes, he has dislikes, can get angry or, whatever. And it's taken me years to really understand that. But I think at the time in the 70s, it was like the only way was the absolute way. That's it. And I think we lost opportunities to talk to him and bring problems to him because we wanted to please him. We didn't want to bring him bad news. So some of the things that maybe we should have said to him, in my opinion, we didn't say. And but in any case, yeah, that was powerful. Little experiences can have a lot of impact on us. My wife never met Prabhupada. She was initiated in '77, but she always prayed him to do books. She was a big book distributor. And, she never saw him, but I feel like she has more realization than I do. And she was second initiated by an ISKCON guru. So just the whole principle of absolute surrender. And I have never really understood the meaning of surrender till coming to India and doing this treatment. And this, I sometimes call this my crying altar. Because, I just cry that, oh God, Krishna, that I haven't taken full advantage of being a devotee. And in the past, I was kind of a religious devotee. I was kind of just comfortable. I think, to be honest, a lot of devotees older devotees are like that. And I just have the realization that that's not enough. That's just, like getting initiated is a beginning. Following the principles is only the beginning. The acharyas have talked about the stages of bhakti, and we're supposed to go through them. So, anyway, so that's my intense emptying out. It's like trying to empty myself out and be able to really honestly surrender. We use a lot of words, we don't know what they mean, in my opinion. Surrender. Surrender used to be, surrender, Prabhu. So anyway, so it's helped me in my relationship to Prabhupada, being here for a year and doing the hardest thing of my life, this practice of, this treatment I'm doing for cancer, and facing it for the last 4 years. It's really changed me, and I have to keep on edge a little bit, if you know what, I don't know, that's not a good, I have to be challenged. Otherwise, I'm just going to just chill through life. So everyone needs, we have a general mission, but everyone needs a specific mission, calling, your right livelihood, but more than that, something that gets you out of bed in the morning. It's like you have this, doing these interviews. And I really try to stress that with devotees, that you need something that lights your fire, so to speak, spiritually. Otherwise, then you can just get too comfortable and too relaxed, and I feel kind of magical thinking. You think that at the time of death, everything's going to open up and you're back to Godhead. Well, I mean, we all hope for mercy. I mean, I pray for mercy every day, but to really understand what we have a hold of here, it's not a light thing. It's Krishna consciousness is more than we think it is. So, yeah. It was kind of a funny story. I didn't think it was funny at the time, again, but I was in Hawaii. My devotional service, I traveled all over the world. So at this time, I was in Hawaii. I think it was 1975 or 4, and I was at the Awalolu temple just before they moved into the big place that Ambarish gave. And Prabhupada was giving Bhagavad Gita classes. So he came and he, I guess he did Jaya and Madhava, I can't remember. I was up in the kitchen. So I came down and he asked for a Gita, and he didn't have his own, of course. And so there was a bookshelf, and we had our Gitas up there. And in those days, we used to write our name on the binding in big letters, so I had mine. So somehow they gave him my Gita, and he turned, it was a verse in the 3rd chapter, I think, about controlling the senses. So he's chanting it, and then he's reading the purport. And I had underlined something, but he didn't know that tradition. He thought I had crossed it out. So he said, he stopped the class, and he says, oh, he does not want to follow the rules and regulations? Where is he? And it was Tarun Kanti, he was the temple president at the time. So he looked at the Gita, he saw my name, it's Karnamrita. So I had just come down from the kitchen, there wasn't many devotees there, and sitting at, it's kind of a semi-dark corner or something. And so Tarun Kanti said, Karnamrita. So I said, where is he? And so he looked around, everyone turned around looking for me, and I froze immediately. Like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble now. I wouldn't say, here I am, the one that doesn't want to follow the rules, Prabhupada. So I just kind of froze. Because usually when I grew up, if you were in trouble, you're gonna get it, So anyway, I guess he explained to him that he wasn't crossing it out, Prabhupada. He was highlighting it. He was underlining it. He was emphasizing it. Just a very, but I have many of these kind of what I think missed opportunities. Because if I could have had an exchange with him. Something I could have explained myself. But so often I was so scared, I just couldn't interact with him properly. But, I mean, it's good in a sense. He established this kind of awe and reverence because we had no idea what a guru was. So better to be like that than to be too familiar, because we saw devotees leave because they were too familiar. But in next year, Prabhupada came again, and this is when they were in the new building that they're in now. And it was a kirtan. He gave a talk, and then they had kirtan, And the Guru Kripa and Yashodananda were doing their thing, and they were just cooking it up, and Prabhupada just loving it, and it was fabulous. And well, the other stories behind that, but I'll just tell this part of it now. And then he did the Premadvani prayers, and he said, "All glories to the assembled dancers." So Prabhupada just loved it. He was just in bliss. And then he went up to the temple, the altar, to pay his obeisances, and the floor was completely wet. So Guru Kripa and other people, they dried it for him, so then he could pay his respects and leave. But just before that, during a kirtan, maybe it was earlier, I can't remember exactly, but someone had garlanded him with these tulsi beads that were, I'm not exaggerating, as people do. They were the biggest tulsi beads I've ever seen in my life. They were huge, maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches, something like that. And he was just looking at them like astonished, like and I was just kind of looking at him because he was like a child. He was just like amazed, And so all of a sudden he just kind of looked at me like, don't relate to me like that. And so I had to, Prabhupada's eyes are very powerful, whether he looked at you lovingly or with anger or chastisement. So I just bowed down, went out, kind of tried to regroup a little bit and try to think about what I had done. Because I probably had my mouth open, or who knows, I just looked dumb. So, there's a certain way to relate to the spiritual master, and you have to know the spiritual master to know how to relate to them. And they're all different. They all have different temperaments and things like that. So that was powerful to be able to, take it. Sometimes people couldn't take the sauce very well. And I mean, that was pretty gentle, but it was like piercing. It was at 1972 Rath Yatra, and for some reason, Prabhupada was coming to the temple, the one that was on Valencia Street, and he came in, and I was there witnessing, and someone let him in, and then Jayananda was there, and he was throwing flower petals at Prabhupada's feet, and then Prabhupada was just, Jayananda, Jayananda, and I was just like, wow, he loves Jayananda so much. Prabhupada was just so happy with him. And there's only a few devotees there. So, and I just was like, wow, this is a real loving relationship you can have with a guru. Because I couldn't really even relate to that. Because I was always low-key, never a person to do anything management or anything like that. I was always in the background. I'm still in the background, which is fine. It's a good place to be sometimes. But to really understand the depth of the love that you can have for the Guru, and of course, as we're trying to cultivate love for the Lord. And to be able to feel, because for so long I couldn't feel, and then I was renounced. But I was just shut down. So I've learned to feel a lot more, and then being here, my heart is like this. And I can, I'm sure it's not fully open, but it's open the most it's ever been in my life. So that's why I cry so much. But they're good tears, and not bad tears. There's a funny story about now. It's kind of related, but I do these video blogs, and on one of them I was crying, and a friend of ours calls my wife and say, Karnamrita is depressed, he must come home immediately. And I just had to laugh and thinking, he doesn't really know me that well. He's from South Africa. So to him, if you're crying, you're in big trouble. But tears, we're supposed to cry for the Lord. And this is the first time in my life that I could kind of get an inkling of that. It's like, yes, this is my shelter, But this experience of seeing Prabhupada and Jayananda, it just helped me to understand that emotions are not a bad thing. Because I was very stoic. A lot of devotees were. And when devotees would joke and be sarcastic, and I wouldn't get it. And they would laugh at me. He thinks we're serious, haha. But it was like, I was like that because I was, serious. Really, the two principal times in my life were both involved facing death. Just before becoming a devotee and now. And so that to me is a huge, Prabhupada said, keep death in the front of you. So that is, it can be theory at first, obviously, but when you really do it, and you look at yourself threadbare, and you realize there is nothing else. There's no other shelter. There's no relationship. They're all important and they have their time and everything, but when you're, like the Draupadi program, I say to people, we want the Draupadi program. We want to just like, I'm yours, Lord. I surrender everything. Do with me what you will. So just realizing to be a devotee means to be a complete person. It doesn't mean just being, throwing the Bhagavad Gita at someone. Get with it. If you're not a good person, if you don't have good character, then who's going to care about your words? So I really like to stress that. Who we are as a person, our character, are we kind, are we loving, are we sensitive to them, is vitally important if we're going to have any kind of impact in the world. Not just, a lot of people in Eastern religions are all in their head, whether it's the TM people, the devotees. So I'm not saying all, but the tendency, especially when you're new. So to be able to feel and have emotion for Krishna and to care, you come here to Vrindavan and it breaks your heart. The monkeys, the cows, the street dogs, the beggars, of course the plastic, and then the urban sprawl, But that's just the covering of Vrindavan. And I like to say to people, you won't see Vrindavan, but you will feel it. In order to feel it, you have to be open to it. You have to have an open heart. Bhakti is about feeling for Krishna. And, here I am 69. Like I said, I've been a late bloomer, but now this is my mission really, talking about what I'm talking about. And being able to really connect and make a difference and encourage people. Because I can blow people out in the situation that I'm in. I've done it a few times. Don't be like me at my age. And they're like, so we don't have to be like that. A little bit of sauce, you could say, but we want to give nectar. We want to give kindness. We want to give encouragement. You can do this. Like Prabhupada said, give this one life to Krishna. So I think about that a lot. Well, my life is, I'm at the final time of my life. Harder for a young man or woman to think about that, but now it makes absolute sense to me, just by the aging process. And that's what we want. Hopefully when we're older, when it's not a time to relax, unless you're really a high devotee and you're just absorbed in the Leela, that's a whole nother thing. And hopefully we'll get there too. But I'm not there yet. I'm praying for it every day. Yeah. For me, throughout my entire devotional life, living in the temple or in Prabhupada's absence today, Prabhupada's face has always been his disciples. They were the first people I met. I met Mahatma. I just thought, wow, he's so far out. I met him on the street. And the devotees were just like really far out to me. It blew my mind just seeing them. And so, when Prabhupada left the planet, I didn't cry. And again, because I was so shut down, I was so unemotional. But I also had the naive assumption that things would go on as they always have been. Because I saw Prabhupada a few times, but usually it was just I was with the devotees. So that they have been the face of Prabhupada for me the whole time. So that he created devotees. If he wouldn't have done that, I would have never met him. So I know how dependent we are on devotees, compatible devotees. You can't associate with everyone. We used to think everyone's a pure devotee, but some people, if you have a far enough distance, you can respect them. Because all kinds of people, bhakti goes everywhere. But really, Prabhupada's face to me is his disciples. Of course, he's in his books too, but it lives on by the disciples. And I like to say to people, you have to represent the tradition. You may have a good guru. We love Prabhupada or whoever your guru is. That's fine. but you are the face. And according to how you relate to people, that is Krishna consciousness for them. So it's very, very important. We're not, when I've been here in Vrindavan, it's like, I got so many faults, I got so many shortcomings. Okay, that's a given. So then what are you going to do about it? How are you? So giving back to Prabhupada, to me, is doing what I'm doing now. Talking and sharing and being an elder. I feel, the older devotees, we have a responsibility to give to the next generation. Because I don't tell people, I try to not tell people I'm Prabhupada disciple. Because they give you so much, oh, Prabhu. I go, whoa, just means I'm old, all right? I might be advanced, but I might not be. I could just show it up after 49 years. I'm a Prabhupada disciple. Because there's a lot of opportunity for Pratishta, being a Prabhupada disciple. Pride, but it's kind of just a pendulum. I don't know if I should mention that, during the Zonalachari days, if you weren't a disciple of the new guru. So times change, and sometimes you have to accept praise and appreciation. You have to be able to graciously accept it, because someone's giving you a gift. My wife and I were with Giriraj Maharaj in South Africa, and every time we went somewhere with Giriraj Maharaj, we had to sit on the big seat and give the wise words, And it was pretty hard. We were getting weighted on hand and foot, basically. So it was pretty, but I had to come to a point. I had to accept it as service. That's good for them. So I can't refuse it. I have to be able to thank you. The grace of my guru, something good came from me. Then you can function. Otherwise, it's just too much. So Prabhupada's and his disciples for me, mainly, and how they live their life. If I can make any contribution now, it's by my character, by who I am, by my practical application of Krishna consciousness on the whole human spiritual level. Then I'm not a fanatic. I'm convinced, but I'm not crazy. I'm not a fanatic. I'm not, somebody meet on the street who wants to tell you they've seen God or something. I have a lot of personal experiences, and certainly, my deities have been so kind to me. They hear everything. It's only fitting that you would do this in front of them, because they've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. They know everything. Because I give them the what for sometimes too. I can't help it. But I do it out of love, a personal relationship.
Je anilo premadana koruna prachu